Good morning, everyone. My name is Dokai Jortson, and I'm happy to introduce the Reverend Kyoku Tracey Walen. She's an associate teacher of Hokyoji. She began practicing Buddhism in 1998 and was ordained in 2008 and given Dharma transmission by Byakuren Judith Ragir in 2015. She trained from 2008 till 2010 at Great Vow Zen Monastery in Oregon. She also studied Zen sewing with Tomoe Katagiri and became one of her successors. Currently, she resides and supports Hokyoji and also serves as a Zen teacher at Waters Zen Center in St. Paul. Thank you very much, Kyoku, for volunteering to give this talk today, and we look forward to hear what you have to say. Thank you. I think you might be muted.
There we go. To my great good fortune, good morning, everybody. It's really excellent to be here, especially excellent to be here today. And I'd like to especially thank Dokai, who called me up a half an hour ago and said, "Did you know you were giving the talk this morning?" So I am right in the midst of life as it happens, and I'm going to give a spontaneous talk of some kind. We'll see how it goes. So let me just sort of give you the scene, the before the curtain opens. The scene is I am in Schenectady, New York. I'm in a hotel with my younger brother, Dean, who's 2 years younger than I am. And I'm here because my younger brother, who's 8.5 years younger than I am, is trying to cope with the death of his spouse, which occurred while he was driving a car and had a head-on car accident, which did not harm him in ways that we can physically measure, but his wife was so badly damaged in that accident that they couldn't operate on her. They couldn't fix what had happened. Her ribs apparently were like powder. They got pulverized. So you can imagine that there's just a lot of shock waves going in all kinds of directions. His wife had kids, and they came up from Florida. So it's my first thought, really, when I first heard about this, was that I was very, very glad that I had many years of practicing Buddhism. And I tried to remind myself as I found myself getting agitated. Well, we learn from what we do in life and paying careful attention to it so that we can thoroughly penetrate the truth of suffering. So this is going to be a giant lesson if I choose to put it to good use. And it's been challenging. It is still challenging. And I am learning quite a bit from it. One of the things I'm learning is how deeply grateful I am for Hokyoji and that setting, and how much of a contribution, even more than I remember on a day-to-day basis, it contributes to my peace of mind. And at the same time, it doesn't take all that much, I'm realizing, to go into the world and figure out, well, am I going? How am I going? Where will I stay? How will I pay for the things? What should I do? And trying to stay in the moment in this day actually is. the single best way to just calm down and be here. But it's difficult. It's just very difficult. When Dokai called me up, he said, "How are you at giving improvisational talks?" I basically said, "Well, we'll find out." So, of course, the first thing I did was I had brought two books, one of which was the second book about Suzuki Roshi, Not Always So. And I had I had read one of the pieces in that book. For those who might not know, he was one of the first Japanese teachers to come over here, and he was the Japanese teacher that became the head of what is now San Francisco Zen Center. And these books are stories that were somehow captured and then collected in two books. So the one that was attracting my attention was one entitled The Boss of Everything. So I certainly don't feel like the boss of everything while I'm here. And I couldn't find the book. So I'm not giving a talk on that particular piece. But I also have a book from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition called Calming the Mind, which is by Gen Lem Rinpa. And this book is based on a one-year seminar slash meditation, really, in the United States. His normal residence at the time that this was delivered was in Tibet, living in a cave by himself and creating the heat that he needed to live in the cave. So he is obviously a very skilled practitioner of Buddhism. And he has a chapter in this book that's called Patience and Fortitude. So I thought, yes, that's what I've been working on in a very active way while I'm here. So what do I want to say about this? I think it's a very short piece, but he asks us, this is again Larimba, whose stories are recorded here. He asks us to remember Shantideva's verse. Why be upset about something if it can be remedied? And what is the use of being upset about something if it cannot be remedied? So I recommend that verse. I recommend the 5 remembrances, which is kind of this verse captures. So the 5 remembrances are, I am of the nature to grow old, to grow sick, to die, to be separated from everyone and everything that I love. And I'm responsible for my karma. I don't quite remember the verse of that, but those are the 5 remembrances. And I've recently, I'd say probably in the last 6 months or so, taken those up as a more regular practice because they're so simple and they're what is. And that I'm finding is just really helpful to remember. I'm prone, as many of us are, to think, well, if I meditate enough, I'll get enlightened. If I get enlightened, then my life will be, beautiful all the time. And there you go. And what's true is the 5 remembrances are always there for us. So my idea about what that might look like, being enlightened, really having a kind of equanimity and wisdom that the Buddha had is constantly in need of revision by reality. And I think one of the things that can come up with that is just a kind of disappointment, or at the very least, a frustration. Now, a lot of people that listen to this Sunday talk have been practicing for quite a while. So this is not new news, but living it every day is a fresh lesson. Just as today I'm going out to the garden, something will be different. By the time I leave the garden, something will be different. So things are constantly changing, some of them subtle, some of them not, and yet. So how is taking refuge in just the truth of the matter of life? How's that going? I don't really have a one or two sentence explanation of that. What I see is, as I encounter things that I don't like, I'm easily absorbed by them. What I'm finding is that as I encounter things, the very small things are the ones that arouse the most irritation. So, okay, I need to get on the internet. Well, this is a hotel with an open internet. How do I protect myself from that? So I called up my computer guy, and he said, "Good, you should have been doing this all along. I'll install something so you're not on an open internet and don't have to worry about that." Well, on 3 days, he's tried 3 times and it hasn't worked. And he's gone through 2 levels of help for people that do his kind of work and know about this particular piece of information. So it's very easy. It's very easy to have that become where my attention and energy is. And it's very easy to be rattled by that some kind of danger, something not going the way that I wanted to. That's helpful. What's helpful too is remembering that I'm the owner of my karma. So every choice I make, it doesn't have to be right. But if I'm not there for it, then I don't have the opportunity to practice with it. It just grabs me by the neck. It grabs my nervous system by the nervous system, and by the nerves, and it's physically and mentally exhausting to be that stirred up that much of the time. And it's very difficult not to wish for things to be different. And or to dwell on, in my case, it's going to be a while, maybe never, that this situation will settle down. We'll get through the many part process of adjusting to the loss of a spouse. In the case of my brother, he is particularly disabled. He has had a virulent form of lung cancer. He's had major heart surgery, and he sleeps a lot, and he shuffles around, and the state of the house that they were in is deplorable. I mean, it's like super deplorable. They've had 3 rounds of bed bugs being eliminated, and things are falling apart. And yet, I find that I can take that in and say, okay, that's not helpful. And be able to just settle down with a million things like that, because that's what it feels like. I'm sure for him too. So he's a little bit like a sleepwalker. Saying loving kindness phrases, both for myself and for my family and for all the people involved. Children of his wife are living in Florida for the most part. We've already started a cycle of confusion and potential fear and anger around assets, money in particular, where it is, whose it is, how do we deal with all of those things? And, I reflect, well, I haven't really provided for taking care of those things when I die. So that's been one of my, I guess, lessons. I'm fortunate to be in a hotel that has workout rooms with walking things and a hot tub and a sauna and a pool. So even though my tendency is to just basically find a library book on my phone and only go to meetings that I have to, or, get groceries or something like that. It's very, I just realize how hard it feels like it will be to be present. And when I just say one step at a time, present, 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 then it's easier to be there. It's easier to be here for the fact that bad news and unpleasant things are by far not the majority of what's happening in each moment. There's lots of moments where there can be gentle smiles, where there can be a certain amount of peace, where there can be sometimes even laughter or appreciation, or just genuine witnessing and staying present for and being equanimous with everybody's disturbment. So my youngest brother's my next, much closer to me brother. We all, have a lot of things going on in our body. And I think that's a little bit of a surprise. I'm not used to having my body in an uproar. And particularly since we're in a fundraising mode right now with the June appeal, and eventually, and not too far away, the Capitol campaign, I realize, wow, there couldn't be a better experience for me to be in the middle of, to inspire me to invest in Hokyoji, both that environment and have it be available to people. And it's really, I've reflected on a much richer experience of what a contribution it can make to a moment or a life, to have that place, that memory in my body and in my mind of just simply being every day, every day, every day, especially in a beautiful place that doesn't have a lot of noise, that doesn't have a lot of unpleasant things happening. So let me read a little bit from Patience and Fortitude. So this is in the last half of the book. We have already talked about laxity, incitement, and their antidotes. We have talked about the importance of devoting ourselves to having few desires, about cultivating contentment, and about rejecting fantasies and conceptualization entailing desire for sensual objects. These are the bricks from which we can build the foundation of our practice. If we are to bring that practice to its culmination, then it is also indispensable to cultivate patience, fortitude, and the forbearance of being willing to accept the occurrence of struggle and suffering. You can see why I might have picked out this chapter. But this is, even as I read it again, a great comfort. It's, this is going to be difficult. And so use it to the best of your ability in your own training. This is part of the practice you have taken as your own. There are two major causes for the disturbance of the life-sustaining subtle energy, the most crucial energy associated with the mind. Let me read that again. There are two major causes for the disturbance of the life-sustaining subtle energy, the most crucial energy associated with the mind. One source is an upset of this type of energy is impatience. The lack of fortitude, forbearance, and patience in terms of accepting the suffering that comes on the path. I think this is crucial, like I said earlier. I have tended, and I'm sure I share this with many people, to think, if I practice, if I get enlightened, I'll always be happy. I won't suffer. And I may not suffer if I practice well and train well, but I will certainly experience things I don't like. So let's talk about impatience. The lack of fortitude, forbearance, and patience in terms of accepting the suffering that comes on the path. The second major cause of disturbance of life-sustaining subtle energy is having very great desire for and clinging to the 8 worldly dharmas: pleasure, pain, praise, blame, gain, loss, fame, and obscurity. So this is a helpful paragraph to read right now for me. It's like, okay, you're really in it. You're really in it, and your practice is no better, no worse, but it's certainly a wonderful tool to have. It's something I can return to, and it's very clear to me that others that I'm dealing with, or when others that I'm dealing with, don't really have access to this level of comfort, and how deeply disturbing it is. If we go back to the fundamental motivation for this practice, to attain the highest awakening for the benefit of all creatures throughout all of limitless space, if we keep this vast and majestic motivation in mind, we can more easily cultivate a sense of patience. And yes, that's true. It's only occurred to me about a couple of times a day, but whenever that experience is here and I'm with it, then there is a kind of smile that can come to my face. It's like, oh, here we go. This is how things are. This is how things are. You can have whatever feelings you have about them. They've already arisen before you even knew they got here. So they're here. There you go. We can gladly accept the unhappiness, the pain, the struggle that occurs on the path when we see it as an unavoidable part of attainment. That's a crucial phrase, isn't it? When we see it as an unavoidable part of attainment. Thank you for reminding me of that. Most people accept great hardship just trying to feed themselves and their families, let alone for any grand attainment of majestic motivation. And I have to say that my brother whose wife died. His name is Andy. Andy's circumstances are not even close to the worst that can be, but pretty darn unattractive. Take farmers, carpenters, or fishermen as examples. Each of them must cope with physical pain, struggle, hardship, even danger. They have to put up with the violent and unpredictable forces of nature, with cold, heat, hunger, thirst, with sore and aching bodies. All of this just to get by. So this has been coming up for me a lot while I'm here, realizing how, in a sense, not quite, I don't like to use the word ungrateful, but it may be the most accurate term, how little I appreciate how much I have. And to remember that, it's like, okay, every time you open your jackknife, you close it, you put it back in this pocket in this part of your house. And when I don't do that, then I spend time looking for it. So it's like I find myself having misplaced my gratitude for how much I am receiving. What a gift this practice is. So if these difficult occupations like farmers and fishermen, they can accept the hardships of their occupations just to get by from day to day, certainly it should be within our scope to take the hardships of practice upon ourselves for the sake of benefiting all beings. So that's another thing that's really coming forward for me, especially since I've been feeling a little tired around my practice. Like, yeah, I know I should do it, but it's hard to get motivated by it. So I'm in this sort of not totally in touch with the aliveness of my life. So I've been saying to myself about that, okay, well, look at that too. Try to be with that. Try to understand it thoroughly. That's part of the practice. And this has just really sharpened that particular advice. And it's helpful because then I'm not using my energy being miserable or wishing something was different. I can wish something was different, but that's another breath in and out. That's what was happening but isn't happening right now. Professional athletes may endure agony just to win a game, a race, a medal. They literally risk body and life to do what they do, and they accept the hardships and the risks for something that is relatively insignificant. In contrast, what do we have to do? We sit on a soft cushion. Yes, that's part of my understanding. It's like, I really have a very easy life at Hokyoji. And really, even beyond Hokyoji, I've really had a very easy life in my life. I've had amazingly few hardships, even though I feel like I've been through something. I'm going through something and it's taxing me. I'm saying here, where is he going with this? He's talking here about becoming familiar. This is really a kind of equanimity training. We need to actually experience presence with all of the unpleasant things as well as all of the pleasurable things that come in our life. I don't know about you all, but I do know for me, I don't always do as I promise myself to do, which is to be present with every moment. And just that simple practice, which isn't necessarily easy, of coming back to just this moment and not holding on to it in any way, just staying with that flow is, I guess, the main focus of my practice. Sometimes I take refuge in reading for inspiration and as a kind of medicine to help me with my practice. But more and more, I realize be present. And the image of a farmer in a field is a very useful one to me and reinforced while I'm at Hokyoji. I begin to appreciate it much more keenly than I have. And that actually feeds my ability to stay present every moment. So then this reminder of Shantideva's verse. Why be upset about something if it can be remedied? And what is the use of being upset about something if it cannot be remedied? And I would say that in this given moment, the biggest challenge is residing in a peaceful way with uncertainty. We don't know enough to know how to remedy, if it can be remedied, this situation as it's unfolding right now. And the more I try to know what I can't know until I know it, the more agitated I become. So this is quite a sesshin I'm in. Whenever you have a problem, bring this verse to mind, i.e. the Shantideva verse. You will find that it brings about great serenity and peace. Well, I'm still working on great, but definitely serenity and peace arrive. And as I look out at you, I think, well, how does this sound to all of you? Because every single one of you, I know, well, not you, Ingrid, but everybody else, I have enough of shared experience to know that they've been through situations more disturbing than this one is, more difficult to live with. So there's a way in which I thank you all for sharing part of those experiences with me, because it makes it easier to remember that you've been through difficulties, just like this one feels to me. And having company on the path is very helpful, really, really helpful. You should not get excited when you find yourself praised either, because someone else is bound to hold you in low regard. Like that. It's like, it's nice that you think I'm doing great today, but just wait. On the other hand, once someone reviles you, someone else is bound to be thinking you are just great. So there is no reason to get excited about what anyone says. Better to remain all the while in total equanimity. For me, what that looks like mostly is something arises and maybe I'm able to see it right there in the moment, and am able to have an opportunity to decide to let go of it. These points are extremely important. It is said that if one does not renounce the 8 worldly dharmas and cultivate the patience of being willing to accept the hardships on the path, there is no possibility of attaining the culmination of the practice. So this is the way I'm managing my path yesterday and today and hopefully in the future. In a I was just going to say in an imperfect way, and then I heard myself saying imperfect, and I thought, forget about imperfect, go beyond imperfect. Just stay right here in this moment and do the best you can. And maybe even forget that this you isn't actually a reality, but it is a vehicle for experiencing this life and being awake to it. And very importantly, helping ourselves and everyone else do the same. So there you go. That's my improvisational speech. Please feel free to share your own, chime in, ask questions, and let's have it, if we can, a little bit of discussion.
Well, thank you, Kyoku. Yeah, when as you were speaking, of course, I couldn't help but kind of been thrown back a year ago for me when my sister died. Um, kind of, pretty much unexpectedly, and it, it's just you just don't know where you're going, and I had to be at her place. It actually took me 2 months to do things, but that's probably because I had 2 months. I mean, I sometimes think, sometimes you got to do that in 3 days, clear out the apartment and something. If you're like a really busy person with a really important job and you get two grievance days a year off, something like that, or what do you call grieving days? Um, and you have to do it really fast. But I found myself not able to work fast. It was just, even if I could work a little bit on the whole scene I had to deal with. And the other thing that came to my mind, and I think various people will have various ideas about this, but my family now, at least the root family I was born into, is gone. All of it's gone. I have no nieces or nephews, or I only have cousins left, a few cousins. Aunts and uncles gone. And I have to tell you, that doesn't feel bad to me. It's like, oh man, I don't have to go through any more family stuff because it's all gone. And I'm not going to take care of my cousins. Believe me, I'm not going to go, but I've had to take care of a brother and a father and a mother and a sister. Basically, I was the one in charge. And, I, as far as family goes, I think probably family brings you the most joy possible in the world, and it probably brings you the most grief. That's that's kind of where my assessment is right now. So I don't have a lot of interest in starting a family right now, which is probably a good thing when I'm 73 years old. But, but it's just, oh man, I just couldn't bring on what it would take to deal with a family right now. So anyway, but I was reminded of you during that, and I thought my sister's thing was hard, because I was alone dealing with it. But man, oh man, if I'd had someone else come in there and start, talking about her money and who it be, and I think, that would have just blown me away. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. At least I was the only person who I had to deal with, so, essentially speaking. Okay, well, thanks again for being, and thank you for your heartfelt, spontaneous speaking. Thank you.
Kyoku, this is certainly the most difficult set of circumstances I've heard of recently. And like Dokai, it brings up a lot of memories. So speaking of family, I just got a high school graduation notice from my oldest brother's middle child's second oldest. I have no idea who this person is. I don't think I've ever met this person, but because I gave his older sister a gift when she graduated, now I feel obligated to give something to him as well, even though I don't even know this person. And what Dokai brought up, when my younger brother was dying, I didn't have as much trouble being with him as I did with his wife, who was just very, very difficult. And I ended up leaving before I wanted to, because she was just so difficult, and my emotional well-being at the time just told me I just had to get out of there. This was back east somewhere. So there are times when you're just overwhelmed. And taking care of things, I found I could do like one task a day, and that was about it. But I have found that when you were reading about carpenters and farmers and fishermen, I believe that physical work is actually a great benefit under these circumstances. I had a doctor tell me once that the best way to deal with stress was to exercise enough to sweat. You have to sweat it out. You have to sweat the stress out. So, and I've found, even most recently, I was just sitting retreat and I wasn't sleeping well. I come home, there's so much work to do. I'm just soaked in sweat every day, and it's like, man, I'm sleeping so much better because I'm tired. And there's something about exhaustion, physical exhaustion, that just levels you out. So I'm suggesting getting to the workout room at your hotel to deal with some of this. And please take care of yourself.
Well, I was there for my third experience and was able to. I didn't do any sweating, but I definitely started. My heart rate started going up to higher levels because they give you all that feedback. So that's great to know. Thank you Thank you for that sharing.
Kyoku, I just want to acknowledge your family's loss, and the grief that everybody is experiencing on many different levels. And I appreciate your vulnerability in expressing the Dharma in this moment, because really that's the expression of the marrow of the experience. So I just want to bring that forward and thank you. And then I also want to kind of pivot and add something, if I may, because I was just listening to Shahako Okamura this morning prior to your Dharma talk. And it's interesting because he was talking about Suzuki Roshi's Not Always So as well. So you might, I found this interesting. Roshi said that this is actually a translation of Dogen's saying of, and I'm not a Japanese speaker, and I slaughter the pronunciation, so I'm just giving it my best shot. So it's a translation of Fu Hitsu Ka Hitsu, which means Fu is not, Hitsu necessarily, Ka, why, Hitsu necessarily. So what he's translating it to is not necessarily how we think. And I was like, that's a bomb. Because when you're talking about karmic consciousness, it's all about how we're perceiving and our view and our thoughts. So I just want to say thank you for bringing that forward too in your talk. So please take care.
Thank you. Thank you for your help in helping me with that. I appreciate you.
Kyoku, I don't have much to add. I just want to say it's great to see you, and thank you for showing up and showing up with your vulnerability and talking about what's going on. It's I find it really helpful for my life and my circumstances to hear you speak, and yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. It's good to see you, and thanks for sending me little notes.
Kyoku, yeah, I really appreciate you sharing all of this. And as I'm sure you remember, it has been just almost exactly a year ago that I was going through a similar situation. My sister-in-law died on brain cancer in a few months' time, and I had the great good fortune to have yourself and Dozen and the Romanji community help me with the so many aspects, but the moving and of my brother-in-law and cleaning, doing the cleaning. And so I wish there was a way we could send out the all the things that it does take to kind of put together and in these times the things that need to be done. But we can't do that from this distance. But I hope you have people or agencies or something you can reach out to and, for support.
We do too. And they're there.
Yeah.
Thank you. But likewise, sending good thoughts to you. Yeah, I'm just so sorry to hear that you and your family are dealing with this. I was a little encouraged by Rishin's description of physical activity because it just resonated with me, and it also made me feel like the body knows what to do a little bit. So yeah, I think you're knowing what to do just as part of your chemistry, which is good to know. So anyway, but yeah, sending good thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, it seems like maybe we've run out of some questions. I thought I was going to say, well, I think I'm going to say, or I'm going to say, that sometimes, I don't know why it occurred to me, but as I was listening to your talk, I thought of sometimes, particularly on days when we don't have Zazen, at Hokyoji at 6:30, sometimes I can wake up about the same time that I always do, and then but I can kind of like get into this macabre pleasure of just of thinking about me, I don't know, before getting out of bed, and I can just do that and say, I'll get out of bed in a little bit, a little bit. But finally, what it comes down to is, well, this really isn't all that pleasurable anyway. And it's like, well, what I really need to do is just get out of bed and do something for the world. You know, that's the only thing that makes any difference. Well, it might start with me washing my dishes from last night because I got to, take care of that before I can do something for the rest of the world. But anyway, it's basically, it comes down to, the work that we're doing. It's just not for ourselves, I think, in the bottom of it all. I mean, it is and it isn't. And
Yeah,
go ahead, yeah.
the was there somebody else that wanted to say something?
No, I don't think so.
I'm reminded of the weekly mindfulness task that I first had contact with at Great Vow Monastery, and I became the author and the dreamer upper of more weekly mindfulness tasks. But one of the ones that I didn't dream up was getting out of bed immediately upon waking, getting down for 3 bows. And the interesting thing about the reports on that was that really makes a big difference in your day. And, you can do it. And it, lots of similar stories about how that worked for people. And then when we said, so do you think you'll continue with this practice? Everybody was like, no, probably not. So it really is a mind over delusion, as it were.
I
That's
remember,
why I so appreciate vows. It's kind of
yeah,
like
I remember Katagiri talking about when you wake up, just immediately get out of bed. He's, I remember him. And that hasn't always been my best aspect of my practice. But anyway, we have a few minutes left. I was going to ask um, Ingrid, are you still? Yeah, Ingrid, can you just introduce yourself? Have you been to Hokyoji Dharma talks before? Do you mind if I just call on you? I am the guiding teacher, so I'm trying.
Let's see, did I just unmute myself?
Oh, okay.
You can hear me, right? No, this is my first time with you all.
Mhm.
I live in Stillwater, Minnesota, and I just moved here, and I've had some radical changes in my life. And I've been out of practice for probably a few years, any kind of regular practice, and I'm very touched and feel really supported being here.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's my brief introduction. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming. And
Yeah,
we hope,
thank you for being here.
yeah, we hope you'll come again when it's right for you. So thank you so
Yeah.
much. Well then, I think we'll move toward closure, and I will going to say next week's speaker is the Reverend Jeremy Cato Thotland, and then after that will be Reverend Onru G.D. Kennedy, who's also starting a retreat on June 19th through June 23rd, and the 23rd is a Sunday, so she's giving the Dharma talk at Hokyoji on that day. We do have a retreat starting today, just for your information. Probably none of you are going to show up, but just for your information, they're here for a week called the Mahakala Radio Retreat. I guess it's a Tibetan group. Okay, then yeah, so yeah. And then as far as other events, we have a Clouds and Water Retreat beginning in July 16th, and then the family weekend on July 26th. So those are the announcements. And at this point, we will close with the 4 vows, of which I will lead. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Okay, thank you all again for coming, and thank you, especially Kyoku. Thank you for your very wonderful talk today. Okay. Bye bye, everyone. Hope to see you soon. Okay. Bye bye.